Mahemtua in Nairobi. To begin in Mali, where the military says it has repelled several attacks by insurgents, including one on their main military base in Kati town, that's 15 kilometers northwest of the capital Bamako. Gunmen attacked several locations in Bamako as well as in the cities of Gao, Mopti, Kidal and Sevare early on Saturday morning. A statement from the military says several attackers were neutralized and equipment destroyed. A UN security advisory confirmed the incident with the U.S. Embassy in Mali. There was no immediate claim of responsibility from Al-Qaeda affiliate JNIM, which frequently attacks military installations. Now, some security officials who spoke to Reuters say they believe the group must have been involved. The Azawad Liberation Front has already claimed responsibility for attacks in Gao and Kidal. The Central Sahel country is battling insurgencies by the West Africa affiliates of Al-Qaeda and Islamic State.
Today morning, armed terrorist groups staged attacks in certain cities of this country. They immediately suffered violent setbacks thanks to the professionalism and commitment of the Malian armed forces. Several terrorists were neutralized and equipment destroyed. The situation is now under control and the public should remain calm. We urge you not to relay videos or propaganda messages aimed at causing panic. Members of the public can refer to our official channels to obtain reliable information.
Around 5 a.m. this morning, the residents of the capital city of Mali in Bamako have woke up under heavy gunfires and also explosion in mainly the circle of Kati, which is the main base of the military leaders of Mali, and also in a district of Bamako called Sirakor, where people could hear some gunshots still around 7 a.m. in this morning. What we can notice is a video released by the same jihadist group of FLA called the Front of Liberation of Azawad in the extreme north of Mali in Kidal, that they are entering in the military base of Kidal. Also, these attacks have also occurred in the biggest city, in the biggest city of Mali, in Gao, and also in Sevare. But from the government's information center, they have announced on the statement that to call the Malian population to get calm and also vigilance, that they are getting the situation under control and they will release some clear information to the populations.
Right, for more on that story, the recent attacks in Mali, are now joined by Dr. Oluwole Ojewale, who is a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies from Senegal's Dakar. Dr. Ojewale, thank you for joining us. What are your thoughts, first of all, on the unfolding events in Mali there?
Thank you so much for having me. I think the unfolding events in Mali can be well situated in recent experience, and the degree to which the terrorist groups and the armed groups in the countries have become emboldened by virtue of attacks that they've been able to carry out in the recent time. And in this regard, I'm talking about attacks such as the siege around Bamako sometimes last year, in which they completely cut off the country capital from energy supply and critical supply in terms of free flow of trade from the littoral countries, which was unprecedented. And coupled with the fact that in the past 2 to 3 years, we've been seeing Kidal, for instance, falling and taking over again, falling and taking over again. And coupled with the fact that this is also reminiscent of other attacks that have been taking place in nearby countries. There was an attack in Niger at the airport. And then lastly, I think they are also copying the operational strategies of other franchises that are operating in places like Middle East. They've seen what happened in Syria. And I think they are probably persuaded that they can also stage or replicate that in Central Sahel.
Right, and looking at the wider picture here, beyond this specific attack, just how bad is the situation there? And what does the government need to do to stabilize the country now?
The situation is bad because I think this is no longer sporadic. It has become strategic in the recent time. An attack against the airport is to clearly send a message where you situate it in the context of the examples that I gave in my earlier intervention. And what should the government be doing? I think there's a need for the government to come up to the realization that they need international cooperation at this time. And they cannot afford to continue to play a solo game with this particular threat. This is not a time to really, even though they've pulled out of ECOWAS, I think both the parties, the Central Sahel state of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, coupled with their ECOWAS counterparts, have to come to their realization that they both need one another, because what happens in Mali, what happens in Kidal, what happens in Bamako does not stay in those places. So I think they need to get much support in terms of international security cooperation. It's unfortunate that they have demonized the West, but they also need to realize that they need to carefully select their partners within that umbrella, because even though they lean so strongly towards Russia, but events of the last 4 years have clearly shown that there is so little that Russia can offer them now. So they need to diversify their security partnership and cooperation.
Right. And finally, Dr. Ojewale, what do these coordinated attacks across Mali mean for the military's fight against insurgents? And also, why is Mali the most vulnerable among the three Sahel states?
Well, Mali is the most vulnerable because it has provided a safe haven for most terrorist groups who are looking for external places to house their fighters and logistics in the past 5 years now. But there's also an undercurrent, the fall of Gaddafi, which is very close to Mali, what has been happening since 2012, the Tuareg rebellion, which actually provided a foundation for the recruitment by terrorist groups from those groups, have actually created that solid foundation that is now manifesting in the scale of attacks that we are seeing now. So I think it's a convolution of so many things. The separatist agitation in the country, which has a very long history, Mali being the buffer zone to the fall of Libya, which became the primary recipient of those fighters, foreign fighters that were returning home from Mali. So this is what built the architecture of what we are seeing today. And the fact remains that if it started from that perspective of international collaboration on the part of the armed groups and terrorist groups, government also need to know that they need to seek international cooperation, like I mentioned earlier, to be able to address these menace.
All right, Dr. Oluwole Ojewale, thank you very much for speaking to us, senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies, joining us live there from Dakar. Moving on, Mali's